Order. This is a special, we'll start the other meeting with invocation. This is a meeting for the public hearing for the budget of 2021. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Haskell Craver to make a presentation for the proposed 2021 budget.
Yeah, Mayor Brady, members of the council, thank you very much. I'm not Cletus Phillips. I will do my best to fill in for him. Mr. Phillips is in attendance if in fact there's a question directed towards him that only he can answer. However, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take us through the proposed budget for the 2021 year, and if in fact there is a question at any point, please feel free to stop me. We can answer those questions. You will note you have a packet at each one of your places. Looks similar to this. It follows along similarly to what I'm going to present to you in the overheads here. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So, congratulations. Congratulations to the city. Congratulations to the staff, those in attendance and those not in attendance that have successfully gained for the 31st year in a row the Distinguished Budget Award. This is not a small feat. Staff should be very proud. I know that I'm proud of them. Biggest questions for 2021. These are probably not earth-shattering to those of you in attendance today. What are the continued impacts of COVID-19? How will that continue, if in fact, to affect what we do as an organization? How will that affect revenue? How will that affect expenditures? In particular, will our local option sales tax collections keep pace with what we've seen in 2020? Will we see business closures and job losses if the pandemic continues? How does that affect our operation? Will we see an increase of foreclosures if we do, in fact, see increased job losses? Will interest rates remain low, thus impacting our investments? And lastly, the last largest question is, will we continue to see expenses associated with fighting the pandemic? Highlights you can see in your packet, you can see behind me and in the other side of the room. What Mr. Phillips has prepared and what I'm sharing with you today is general fund highlights for the 2021 year as opposed to the 2020 year. What Mr. Phillips and I are presenting to you is a balanced budget, general fund balance of $27,857,000, which is an increase of 3% over the previous year. It's important to note no reserves were used to balance this budget. Again, with your direction, includes no millage rate increase. It is a conservative 97% of current year revenue. This budget, which is of note, does not include new employees as opposed to the year we're in now, which included 6 new employees. Most of those employees were associated with the opening of Fire Station 4. What is proposed in the 2021 budget as opposed to the 2020 budget is a one-time mid-year pay increase of between 1.5% to 3%, as opposed to the current budget year where we provided a 5% overall pay adjustment to all full-time staff members. What the 2021 budget also shows is an 8% increase in health insurance and a 24% increase in the retirement contribution. I'd like to draw your attention to that bottom note of the 24% increase in a retirement contribution. I think that's important to note. We'll talk about it again, hopefully, as we move through the presentation, and it may even be an item of interest for this body to consider as we continue to proceed through the future and in planning opportunities. As we move on to our major revenue changes, from 2021 to 2020, we are proposing an increase of local option sales tax in the 2021 budget of $600,000, an increase in ad valorem, insurance premium, occupational tax, and the transfer from the Water and Light Commission, or as you know them as Newnan Utilities. Items of note, there are some revenue decreases and changes you will see year over year. That's the largest of which is the transfer from the tourism fund. For those of you who are paying attention to not only the local economy, but the state and the nation, you're seeing a decrease in hotel-motel tax collections. That's what this is here. Interest, again, as was noted on the first sheet or second slide, with interest rates continue to stay low, we anticipate gaining less revenue from interest on our investments. Residential permits, liquor licenses as an action of this body, intergovernmental revenue, and delinquent property tax. We anticipate a decrease in those revenues. The intergovernmental revenue, I'd like to note, that decrease is actually Coweta County through their Coweta County Development Authority, if you recall, was obligated to pay on an annual basis monies to the city for participating in the University of West Georgia's Newnan campus or that redevelopment project. They paid that off and satisfied that this year in advance, so that's a good thing. So while this shows a decrease in revenue, that's what that is. We're just not realizing that revenue because the county has paid off that obligation this year. As we continue, we're looking at expenditures now. We're on that side of the ledger. The difference from 2021, or in 2021, we anticipate, I'll take you to the red numbers. Vehicle, change of vehicles, that's 2 vehicles. We don't anticipate that hampering our ability to provide services to our citizens and visitors. Buildings and ground maintenance, that is not that we are no longer maintaining our buildings or grounds. What that is a difference between this calendar year where we made certain improvements that are capital in nature, but you don't capitalize them. For instance, Veterans Memorial Park, Temple Avenue Park, that was an improvement that was made this year. I hope some of you have gone by to see that and the wonderful work the beautification department did there. So there's a change there. So that's not that we are not maintaining our buildings and grounds. We will continue to maintain those and have our buildings and grounds be the showpieces that we know you like them to be. Part-time employees, temporary employees, travel expenses, due to the current restrictions as a result of COVID-19, we do not anticipate employees traveling as much for trainings in this coming year. And workers' comp, that's always good whenever you can find one of your insurance line items actually decrease year over year. Any questions on the major general fund budget highlights before I start to show trends? Councilman Alexander?
Yes, on vehicles, where did they come from?
Police department, sir.
Police?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have a schedule that we maintain, and over time we bring new vehicles on each year. We typically budget for 10. This year we budgeted for 8, I believe.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, with no other questions, I'm going to move on and start looking at some trends over time. This bar graph shows the 5-year history of your general fund budget. The budget does increase by $711,000. Which is a 3% increase from the previous year. Moving on, Mr. Phillips has shown this slide in the past, and I'm going to continue to do so. What it shows is the rollback rate and the adopted rate. Beginning at the left-hand side, you see that in 2004, this body adopted a millage rate of 4.5 mils. The current year, we're at 3.64 mils. I think it's evidence that you are wonderful stewards of the ad valorem taxes collected, and our folks on staff do a good job of mindfully spending those. As we continue on, look at our revenues over time. Again, we are projecting 97% of current revenues, so it's quite conservative, which has become our practice over time. However, there's a 5-year history moving from left to right. We're going to continue through to general fund major revenue sources. You guys have all seen this in the past, but to show again, local option sales tax, property tax, and occupational tax or occupational fees remain our 3 largest revenue sources to the general fund, followed afterwards by insurance premium tax, the transfer from Newnan Utilities or Water and Light, and so on. This next pie graph, I'm going to bring your attention to the note at the bottom. Public safety, police, fire remains the largest share of expenditure by function. If you were to look at this pie graph last year, as opposed to this year, the blue section in what we call general government has increased. The increase is due to us becoming self-insured in our health insurance platform. We had to account for all of that expenditure in the HR budget. As opposed to years past, each of the departments by pupil were charged the health insurance when we were insured previously. So that's the change here if you were to look at year over year. However, our public safety, if you were to take the amount of funds we spend to provide health insurance to them, we're still well over 60% of our public safety folks. Moving along to our major operating expenses. Outside of what was shown are contractual services, repairs and maintenance, and you can see the list moving from left to right. General fund expenditures by category, this next pie graph. Wages and benefits make up a large percentage of what we do. We have lots of people, and those people do a very good job every day providing services to our residents and visitors. This is not uncommon in our line of work. As we continue on, benefit changes, this bar graph moving left to right for time, 2016 through 2021. If I can draw your attention to the third set, again, this is the retirement, the largest increase over time. I think it warrants potential conversation, maybe at a future retreat, maybe at another time. I think there's an opportunity for us to realize some savings in this area with providing a genuine benefit to those staff members I've talked to a number of times today. Councilman Schell.
Well, the insurance increase, I mean, part of that's because we're going our own way with that self-insured, because it's risen dramatically over the last 5 years or so.
The health insurance has, yes, sir. The retirement is somewhat different. Mayor Brady's quite informed in that area. I don't know if he would like to add anything to what he may believe is attributing to that, but we believe that there are opportunities for us as the City of Newnan, as an organization, to look at potential other ways to delivering a rich retirement benefit to our citizens. The self-insured portion of what this collective body voted on in a previous meeting does not include the retirement.
Right, and I think that's a great conversation for 2021, I really do.
Yes, sir.
It's an opportunity that we need to look at.
Amen.
Before we go on, I also would like for us to look further at a retreat this next year into the health insurance and see if we can't come up with some ways to level that off or even take it down a bit by letting our staff come up with some innovative ways that they might change this by possibly having other routes to take care of everyday health cost.
Yes, sir. We'll make certain that we capture that note, and we'll put that in a future meeting agenda. Thank you. Anybody else on this slide? No? All right. Moving forward, all funds combined, 6% increase from 2020. It's primarily project related. You're very well aware of those projects. A number of you were at a groundbreaking today for one of those projects. All funds combined is those funds, SPLOST funds, 2013, SPLOST fund 2019, general fund, et cetera, et cetera. That's what we mean here. Continuing on, we're going to hit some of the major funds here outside of the general fund. You have your 2013 SPLOST fund, which is almost exhausted. We have the Lower Fayetteville Road scoping project, which continues, and $1.2 million for Link. Budgeted for the 2021 year. You see that total 1.8, and there's some other small miscellaneous projects included in that. Moving on to the 2019 SPLOST fund. Again, the Link is shown here, but also C.J. Smith Park and its redevelopment, which is currently underway, as well as Pickett Field, which will happen and will hopefully break ground here before the end of the calendar year or beginning of next calendar year, and others. Moving on, the Impact Fee Fund. We've allocated $750,000 for the Link. The Link is quite popular, but as this body has asked staff to do, we have front-loaded the Link in using SPLOST funds to try and, in the first 3 years of the 2019 SPLOST issue collection, to try and get the Link as much done as we can. So we're doing that. Sanitation fund. I'd like to draw your attention to this in particular. There's an 11% increase, which is directly attributed to the volume of pickup. We continue to receive the same revenue. However, we are picking up more. More stuff is entering our trucks, more stuff is being tipped. The cost for that is increasing. Our revenues are flat. This is an area that Mr. Phillips and I, with your support, would like to consider at a future meeting. It is also of note to note that we have not included capital purchases for the second consecutive year out of this fund. The financial status of this fund is a major concern due to the static revenue and escalating expenditures.
Just a quick question.
Yes, sir.
We can delve into this again much deeper later.
Uh-huh.
But talk about the capital purchases. Are we having any capital, need for capital expenses or capital purchases anytime in the near future? Within a year?
Within a year, it's unlikely, Councilman Carrico. However, if we continue to see the volume that we're seeing, it's likely that Mr. Phillips and I will be before this body at some time in the future requesting capital expenditures for another truck, potentially another route for the bulk pickup trucks that you see in your neighborhood. Yes, sir.
Would that
So
also potentially include personnel increases as well?
yes, sir. Oftentimes, there's an individual or two that's assigned to that truck.
So is that like a reallocation of manpower, or is that actually hiring on new people? Do you think? Just kind of, again, just kind of a.
Right. So it could be done both ways.
Okay.
So as we get into that more detailed conversation, those are wonderful questions that I think, and again, that's why I think Mr. Phillips and I have highlighted that this sanitation fund probably warrants some more conversation.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Shell.
Let's say COVID, a whole lot of that's COVID though, because people are using more paper as we throw away things, carry out, things like that. And we cut the revenue stream down first, back in the spring when what we charged on that too. That's part of the problem.
That's correct. Yeah, we did see an uptick towards the beginning, March, April, May, of goods being thrown away as a result of maybe people being home and doing a little bit of extra cleaning while they were home, we'll say, to keep it polite. I'm going to move on unless we have other questions on this slide. No? All right. Moving on into the hotel-motel tax fund. I think I hit this earlier, and I don't think this is a surprise to any of you here, that the hotel-motel tax fund, we anticipate revenues in 2021 of $742,000. I think it's interesting to note this number here, $700,000, was at our original 5%. This corporate body took the rate to 8%. Then COVID came in, people stopped visiting hotels, motels, we stopped collecting. This number is back down, we anticipate back to about where we were at 5%. So just be mindful of that. This is the largest revenue decrease we anticipate, and as a result, the general fund will receive a smaller transfer than it has in the past, and so will Explore Newnan Coweta, which is the combined group with the city and the county and others in the private sector, as well as the Newnan Center. And that's noted here, $185,500 we anticipate the transfer for this next year. And the last slide.
I have one question.
Yes, sir.
185,500, how is that split between the center and?
The Newnan Center will receive $185,500, as will Explore Newnan
Okay,
Coweta,
both will
Inc.
receive.
Yes, sir.
I
They
see.
will each receive
Okay,
that
thank
amount. Yeah. All right, and the last slide, which is behind me and in front of you, is our total capital budget, 5-year history, moving left to right from 2017 to 2021. And the last is questions. I know we've had
Anyone have anything else? Thank you.
You're welcome.
Good report. Appreciate that. Does anyone here have any questions? This is a public hearing on the 2021 budget. Melissa, you're shaking your head. That's the right answer. Okay.
All right.
All right. I am going to, it's 6:19, that I'm going to close the public hearing on the